28. The invocation will be given by Tony Miles, Transforming Greatness. Pledge of Allegiance will be given by Commissioner Denny Collins. Please rise.
Let me first apologize. I was running to get here. But let me say this before I get started. I always sit with the Father to find out what He wants me to say. I just don't. I could look at the website and look at the issues, but I haven't done that. I just listen to the Father and what He wants to release to each of you tonight. And so, with that said, please join me in a word of prayer. All right, may we bow our heads. I was in 1 Corinthians 16. That's where the Lord took me. Into a particular scripture, verses 13 and 14. And He said, "Be on your guard. Stand firm in the faith. Be men of courage. Be strong and do everything in love." So when you look at this letter to the Corinthian, Apostle Paul is making some personal requests, but he also gives final comments concerning those who will lead the church at that time. And so he presents the qualities that a godly leader should possess while leading their community. God calls leaders for the purpose of guiding His creation, His community, according to His will. And Proverbs 19:21 says, "Many plans are in a man's mind, but it is the Lord's purpose for him that will stand." So the Lord told me to declare over each of you 5 keys to a godly leader. First one is be alert and be on guard. You must watch over the community, Bradley County, that God has given to each of you. Ephesians 6:18 says this, and I'm paraphrasing. "With all prayer and petition, pray at all times in the Spirit, for you are the watchmen, alert to the strategies of the enemy, which are defeated in prayer." Number 2, we declare that you are absolute in your faith and that you stand firm in your faith. Romans 6:17 tells us faith comes by hearing, and hearing by the word of God. You must stand firm on God's word. Stand firm in your faith in God's word to you. Number 3, be active. Be men of courage. The Lord said, take some risk, even if you fail. Be strong and very courageous. The Lord told Joshua, the Lord in His mighty power. Ephesians 6:10 says, His strength will make you able for whatever He's called you to do. And number 5, last but not least, create an atmosphere of love. Do everything in love. 1 Corinthians 12:31 tells us of a more excellent way. The right atmosphere is so important to leadership. This atmosphere must be created before you have much influence upon the community of Bradley County, because people will follow your leadership if they know that you love the Lord and that you love them. And you all know 1 Corinthians um, 13, 4 through 8, where it talks about love is patient, love is kind, love is not envy, it does not boast, it is not proud, it is not rude, it is not self seeking, it's not easily angered, it keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects and always trusts, always hopes, and always preserves. And finally, the Lord said, He has called you and placed you where you are for His purpose. For His purpose. You did not get here by your own strength. He raised you up. With His leadership, you will fulfill His call in your servant life. And one day you will hear, well done, my good and faithful servant. And so normally, I usually end the prayer by calling each of you by name. But he said that he's not going to call you by the name your parents gave you or your earthly name. He declares he's called you as godly leaders. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. The report from the county mayor, who is absent, will go to his assistant, please. Adam Lewis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A few things tonight. First of all, the septic repair program update. As of today, RC&D, that would be the first group of money that we spent, 89 signed contracts, 69 projects have been paid out and completed. Bradley County, of course, had 18 signed contracts, and 11 of those have now been paid out and completed. The next couple of things, actually, we will need to have someone place on the the voting session agenda. The first is a request. Pass it down. Actually, let me get one of those.
Hey, Adam, what was that number 69 completed by RC&D and how many left?
20 left.
20
89
left.
total contracts signed with them. 69 have been paid out and completed.
Well, like 4 months.
This is a resolution that we're asking you to place on the voting agenda for next week. This is declaring a portion of the park on Urbane Road as surplus property. Let me explain why. Passing a map around as well. We have an offer on a portion of the property that we are not using, that we don't have plans to use, and that frankly can't be used because of the rugged terrain that it represents. The map that you'll see represents roughly 27 acres on the back side of the property. This is the main park on Urbane Road, okay? Where the farmer's market is, the pickleball courts, the majority of our baseball and softball fields are. You'll notice the 27 acres that are highlighted there is a wooded area. It's very, very steep in parts of that. There's really only maybe, of the 27 acres, maybe 2 that are flat enough to build on, and it's not on the side of the property that we would be able to develop. So we have an offer to purchase this property. The first step it's been a while since we've done this, so let me explain how this works. The first step in selling property like this, the commission must first deem it as surplus property, and that's what the resolution before you would do. We're asking that it be placed on the agenda for next week for the voting session agenda. Should that be approved, then we would actually need to subdivide this property because it's landlocked, okay? There's no road frontage to this piece of property whatsoever. And it's not our intent to provide access to this portion from Urbane Road or any property that the county owns as well. So there's a process then that would take place through the Planning Commission. Ultimately, the property has to be bid. Just because we have an offer doesn't mean we can take it or leave it. The property would have to be bid out, and then any bid, the highest bid, presumably, would be brought back to the commission for you to approve, to either accept it or deny it at that point. The proceeds, we've already identified. We'd like to take the proceeds, should this sale go through, to double the number of pickleball courts that are there. We have 4 currently. With the sale of this property, the majority of the proceeds would allow us to double that to 8 out there at this property, as well as the addition of a small pavilion and potentially even a restroom there at the tennis courts and the pickleball facility. So that's kind of a 30,000-foot view, but this would be step 1 in that process, and that is for the commission to deem this as surplus property.
How time sensitive is this?
I wouldn't say it's an emergency. It's been on our desk for about a month, so they're not knocking down the door. But
Okay, I'd like to refer this to the Building and Lands Committee for consideration. Be all right? Thank you.
all right. The next resolution is formality of something that you voted on before, but I'll pass this out. Did I give you one of those? This is the, take one of those and pass it down. If you remember, when we passed the budget, there were funds set aside out of the opioid settlement budget that you approved for the use of mental health support for our first responders. What this resolution will do, and this is another one that we would need, are requesting that you place on the agenda for next week's voting session. This is authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with 2 healthcare providers to be able to provide therapy for our first responders, and the details of who that implies are laid out here in the resolution as well. This was part of the $75,000, if you look at the opioid budget that you passed as part of the omnibus budget, if you will. This comes from the opioid settlement funds, and the line item is the $75,000 that was set aside for this program. What these funds and what this agreement really centers around is that as a situation arises where our first responders need more than just a talk with a chaplain or a defusing or a debrief, as they sometimes call it at these the larger incidents that we think about that tend to make the front page of the paper. There is follow-up after those, but sometimes there's reoccurring need for some of our folks. And so this is actually, this will put in place the ability to pay for therapy from licensed therapists that will be able to help our first responders. And it is outlined there that is everyone, employees of Bradley County Sheriff's Office, Bradley County EMS, Bradley County EMA, Bradley County Fire Rescue, as well as our dispatchers at 911.
Commissioner Blake will place it on the agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Real quick, Adam, we talked about this in finance, in the budget, the 75,000. We have every anticipation that this is going to be recurring, but let's say, is it going to operate like the water for HCI? In other words, let's say no one ever takes advantage of this, or no one ever has a need for it, and there's 75,000 that's been earmarked for it. Does it stay at 75,000 for the next budget year, or does it go up 100?
Having never done this, we don't really know what the participation level will be.
Of course,
we hope it's low, right? I mean, we don't
yeah.
hope that this money gets spent. But I think to answer your question, we would have to reevaluate at the end of this year, or as we plan for next budget year, whether or not 75,000 would be more than enough, or if we need to adjust that number at that point. This is not money that we have to give back if it's not spent by a certain amount of time. So there could be some bleed over.
My initial thought is that just 75,000, get it to, at the beginning of July 1, when we pass the budget, get it back to 75,000 from whatever was used in the previous year. Second question is I've chatted with a couple of the elected officials, Sheriff Lawson and Director Gary and all those, and they are aware of it when we pass the budget and we put this in there. But I think there needs to be a more formal, tangible communication to the employees that this is available to them.
Yeah, that will take place, and once this is approved, this is really the final step to be able to roll out the full program to them. Phase 2 or step 2, if you will. There were a handful of first responders last month that met and were trained as what are called peer support leaders. These are folks across all departments that are trained. The best way to describe their training was they're now expert noticers. Okay, these are folks that are side by side with our first responders that are now trained to be able to notice if somebody's off, if their behavior is odd, to have difficult conversations. And so that was also part of this. Now that once this resolution and the agreements are in place, we have every intention of communicating that with the employees so that they're fully able to take advantage of it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
That's all I have.
Oh, great. We're moving right along. I'd like to also welcome Mike Griffin from the Chamber of Commerce and District Attorney General Jerry Patelo. Welcome. We'll start from the right on the reports from committees and our districts. We'll start with Commissioner Beatty.
Everything looks pretty good in the first district.
Great. Commissioner Hughes.
Mr. Chairman, our Emergency Service Committee met last week, and we wished former Chief Fairbanks well on his retirement, which started Friday. The Fire Rookie School is well underway, and I invite you to their graduation on September 8th at 1 p.m. at the Family Worship Center on Dalton Pike. The addition of the 9 graduates will fully staff the fire department. We learned Bradley County ISO rating is now a 3, which is a great accomplishment. EMS Director Mike Guerin reported Dooley Street renovation Phase 1 has been completed and Phase 2 is underway and expected to wrap up in a couple of weeks. EMS currently has 3 vacant full-time positions. There are a number of EMS employees attending medic school on scholarship or on their own. We're excited about these individuals graduating and moving into the new roles of EMS. Director Guerin reported wait time at the ER have improved, and he committed to continue closely monitoring it. Lastly, we learned EMS finished the last fiscal year with a better than projected revenue. Congratulations to the department and gratitude for their job they do. And I have no other.
Great. Commissioner Alford, please.
Yes, Second District is doing well. Referencing back to this resolution that the mayor offered on the property out at Park, I just want to encourage the Building and Land Committee, Howard. I just want to encourage Building and Land on this resolution to buy or sell that surplus. So I don't know that I ever remember selling any surplus land. I have a real problem with getting or selling Bradley County land in any form of fashion. So I just really want to encourage Building and Land to take a really, really strong look at this piece. Take a hard look at it. I didn't say that. I just said take a hard look at it. You do want to sell. A hard look at it. All right. I think it would need a lot of commissioners to be at that meeting because there's a lot of concerns I have referencing this solution.
Great. Commissioner Blake.
Thank you,
please.
Mr. Chairman. First, just an announcement that the Bradley County tire take back will be on September the 16th from 8 a.m. to noon. There will be, you're allowed 8 tires per household, and it is for Bradley County residents only. Thank Commissioner Mason for having the crew out there taking the tires. But this isn't the silver bullet for the tire illegal dumping, but I think it does help those who have a few tires here and there, and it gets them, and we properly get them recycled. So it's a good program, and I appreciate Commissioner Mason and all his people over there. Second, Mr. Chairman, I think about a month or two, maybe even more, memory escapes me, we adopted a policy on the physical note. And I said then it was a good attempt, but it would probably need some tweaking. And I've had some feedback from an elected official and a department head on that. This is just a policy change. I think we need to basically change the policy where it says a physical note is only required if, like this resolution that we're going to take up on the opioid, it was budgeted and it's in the budget. You can find out what you need as far as the information on it. The physical note is required for non-budgeted items that are non-budgeted expenditures. So if we can make that tweak, I think the elected officials and the department heads that submit resolutions would be a little bit clearer in understanding. So if we can put that on the work session for next week, I'd appreciate that, Mr. Chairman.
That would be the voting session next week. Do we need to send it to Commissioner Winters' committee, or just go ahead and vote?
If you think it needs to, it really is just a change in the language that only fiscal notes required if it's a non-budgeted expenditure.
Lori, can you put that on the agenda for next week?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Next, we have a guest here. You just introduced her, and she would like to talk to the commission for a few minutes. If you would recognize Ms. Sherry Taylor, our current district attorney. Thank you.
Welcome.
I just wanted to come by and introduce myself. A lot of you I know, but I'm Sherry Taylor, and I am your district attorney. Governor Lee appointed me in the middle of July to this position, and I'm very excited about it. And I'm also the first female district attorney our district has had, so I'm loving that I'm trailblazing. For those of you who don't know me, I started here in '94. So there's some like Howard that have, Commissioner Thompson that has known me for 30 years. And I have served Bradley County, McMinn, Monroe, and Polk counties from '94 to 2006. I went into private practice for a little bit there and at Crump, Richardson, and Young. I was young then. I left there and went back to prosecuting in an adjacent judicial district in Blount County. But when Steve Crump asked me to come home, I said, absolutely. Because this is where I was raised. This is where I grew up in the 6th district. That's where I'm living now. My family lives there. My parents live there. And, not the 6th district, I'm sorry, the 1st district. I lived in the 6th district for a little bit, but I grew up in the 1st, and that's where I live now. I'm sorry about that, Commissioner Hughes. But you know, this is my home, and I love Bradley County. I went to Cleveland High, but I lived in the county, so I'm like one foot in both places. So, but I'm eager to continue my service to the citizens here, to serving the victims, and to holding criminals accountable. And if there is anything that my office can do to help you as you serve Bradley County, please let me know. I'll be happy to work with you. And I appreciate the opportunity to say hello and let you put a name to my face. You know, Vice Chairman Winters said to me, you know, that he appreciated someone that's always been in the background getting a chance to stand out front. And I appreciate that. And I am going to do my very best. I've done that for 25 years in prosecution, and I intend to continue that beyond the March 5th primary. So I appreciate you all, and I thank you for your service to Bradley County. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's on the 3rd.
Great. Thank you very much for coming tonight. And come back often. Not on a professional basis, please. Next, we'll have Commissioner Collins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. All is well on the third. I do want to send condolences out to my home church, Philippi Baptist, who lost a strong leader in their community, and they're dealing with some heartache this week, and definitely want to tell them we love them and appreciate them, and we're praying for them in the loss of Jason Hooker this past week. So other than that, all is well. Thank you.
Thank you. Has the body returned from Mexico yet? Okay. Thank you. Commissioner Winters.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to thank Pastor Tori Miles for sharing with us today. She's a person that we all know talks to God, and he talks to her, and prayer was tremendous. Thank you for that. We appreciate that. The 7th District is doing great. The 60 highways moving forward, probably as we're seeing the paving coming down and all the signs with the schools, I think we're doing very well speed-wise with the schools, but we probably need to keep a real eye, too, for us that drive a little faster than others. I'm raising my hand here. It's easy to come down a hill and speed. It's easy to try to make extra time to get places. It would be terrible, even in non-school time. This is what I'm talking most of it right now. Once school's out, we got a free ride down that hill, moving through. Construction's still going on. For us that are close to Cleveland Middle School, we're glad to see most of it moving away. We have paving going on, and kudos to TDOT. They've been very respectful to us. I drive my little car under these big vehicles that are moving dirt, and they've been kind. They move around and let us actually move through the neighborhood. So, thanks to TDOT and the team. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Gilbert.
Yes, I had a phone call from a gentleman out in Sample Chapels Road, and there's a curve there, and in that curve is his driveway, and it's the actual road. It's 122 Chai Way, CAYEEWALAY, and the post office had came and told him that they was no longer going to service him. And I told him there wasn't a whole lot that I could do that, and he said, "Would you read my letter? This man has cancer, and hospice is in with him, and he had to drive to the post office to get his mail, and he told him, he said, the things that you wrote in this letter is not true about me. He said, I'm not a mean person. I don't have mean dogs. He said, I got a little bitty dog and another dog, and it don't have teeth, and it lays on the ground all the time. But my neighbor's got a dog that kind of barks a lot." He said, "And whether you're talking about my neighbor or not, I don't know." But I told him I would read his letter, and it says, management has been made aware and has also observed that your animal presents a clear and ongoing safety hazard to our carrier. Due to similar issues in the past, he's lived there 2 years and he's never had a similar issue. They've never spoke to him. It said, during the past, of which you were verbally notified to take conservative action and failed to do so. They have never spoke to him. This man is a good man, and I've known him my whole life, and I believe he has never spoke to them. And it goes on to say that the result is the demise of one said animal, where we are issuing you a formal warning to have 10 days from the last of this letter to ensure your animals and property contain and move your mailbox, replace it to the opposite side of your driveway. This man's done nothing. All he wants is his mail. And it just ain't right the way they've treated him. And he went to the postmaster, and to go to the postmaster, and the supervisor there said that she would come and see him, and he has not seen her yet. So I went out there a couple more days later to put up his mailbox for him, and he said, I really would like for them to come out, and it's awful hot today, and I don't want to stand out in the sun. And where he could put his mailbox up is in a curve. And when I pulled out in the curve, they was cars come flying around through that. And it was not right, the things that this man has to put up with his last days. But I'll be praying for him. And he wanted me to read his letter, and like I told him, I said, there's not a whole lot I can do about this, but I can voice your opinion. You are my constituent. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Thompson,
I
please.
think if he lives on a county road, they gotta deliver mail to him. So if it's a county road, or city or whatever, they gotta deliver mail. I know that for a fact, so. I got 2 or 3 things here. I just want to thank the general for being here. I've appreciated her for a lot of years, and she's always done a good job, and always been fair and whatever, but we appreciate you being here. We're just glad you're the Attorney General now. The next thing is, we just talked about the 27 acres there a while ago. I'd like to call a Building and Land Committee meeting at 11 o'clock, at our next meeting here, which is the 4th, I believe. That's the 4th, or when is it? The 5th? Okay.
Do we have a finance meeting at 11?
You have one at 11?
Yep.
Well, which comes first? Okay. Well,
Back it up a little bit.
well, let's back it up till 10 o'clock. Will that work for the Building and Land? We'll get through before you finance. We might need you in the meeting, we don't know. But the next thing I want to say that I don't want to apologize for the music last week. They played it before the Republican debate, so I thought that was, if they could do that, I could probably do it here. So anyway, that's a blue collar anthem, and I just want everybody to know that. And there's a lot of blue collars. I'm one of them blue collar jobs. And I've had to work hard all my life, so I'm not going to apologize for that. But if I did offend somebody, I do apologize to you, but I don't apologize for the music. And that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Chairman?
Yes.
Since you're calling, Chairman, since you're calling a meeting, one of the things that came up the other day, I had briefly about it, was the small land right there in front of Bradley Central High School, I guess where they play soccer and lacrosse and all that. I talked to the principal over there, and if it's all possible, we actually own that land. The county commission owns that. It makes sense, I think, to let them take over. They maintain it. I believe there's a dead tree over there that needs some attention and stuff like that. So, Chairman Thompson, if you could put that on your agenda for your meeting next week, I'd appreciate it to take care of that. I thank you.
All right. Is that all, Commissioner Thompson? Great. Commissioner Goins. All right. Commissioner Mason.
6 districts doing well. I think we have a broadband update, but we'll do it when we're finished with the rest of the commissioners.
All right. Commissioner Ledford.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just want to send out condolences to Ed Lewis, former road superintendent, passed away. He was 90 years old. And of course, Bob Walker and former Governor Sundquist passed away. We want to send out condolences for him. And other than that, Mr. Chairman, that's all I have.
Thank you. Commissioner Rogers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Starting September 1st, this Friday, September is Pediatric Cancer Awareness Month. This past week, Mix 1041 and First Baptist Cleveland held a morning of prayer for the childhood, for children in our community who are battling pediatric cancer. There are 9 children right now in Bradley County that have some form of pediatric cancer. And it was an amazing service, and it was an amazing time. to be able to sit there and pray and hear from these children that age from 4 years old to 18 years old. And I want to thank Commissioner Winters. Got to sit with him for a while and pray, and Commissioner Blake was there as well. And it was a beautiful day and a beautiful morning there. And if you would, all the commissioners here and all of our constituents, this upcoming month, if you would, just keep those 9 children in your thoughts and in your prayers, and everyone and their families in this community who are struggling with pediatric cancer. And that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. We'll now go to the agenda items. Agenda item A, Commissioner Tim Mason.
Yeah, I called for a broadband update for Adam. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Some of this will be a repeat, but it's worth repeating because I know we get calls weekly, and I'm sure you all do too, about broadband and what's going on in Bradley County. So first of all, let's talk about the 2 grant areas that were covered under the Tennessee Economic and Community Development Grant that we received last year. Okay, primarily the first area is in the Chatta Valley area. I'm told that area is for the most part done. There is one section that is still nearing completion, but they held an event, VEC and Twin Lakes held an event out there actually just a couple of weeks ago with their trailer advertising service and asking people to sign up. When that area is complete, that will allow access to 1,006 new meters or new homes. They go by the term meter because it could be a business or a home, but roughly 1,000 new homes. The other area that's under construction right now.
To my knowledge, it does not take in Upper River Road, River Point, that large subdivision. Do we know if that's on the agenda or not?
It's not a part of anything that we have funding for right now. It could be a part of a future application or a future project.
Thank you. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
The other area is going to be near the White Oak Valley and the Mahan Gap Road area. They are under what's considered make ready. Make ready is they're going through and they're replacing telephone poles, making them taller, replacing or repairing any that may need to be updated. That is another 742 homes that when it's complete will have new reliable broadband internet access. Under that TECD grant, we applied with Volunteer Electric and Twin Lakes for actually 3 areas. The other area which was not awarded was a large portion of the 6th district. It was the second time that we've actually applied for state funding for that area, and it was the second time that we were denied. So it's not for lack of trying down there in the 6th district to get broadband. We're at the mercy of the funding from the state and the federal government, unfortunately. We will have another opportunity to apply for that area, and I'll mention that here in just a moment. If you'll remember earlier this year, though, we partnered again with Volunteer Electric in the McDonald area on a 50-50 grant. And that area is also under what they consider make ready, and they hope to be able to begin construction there. The engineering has been completed. That's a big part of their process, why they can't just go out there as soon as they get the funding. They've got quite a bit of engineering and make ready efforts to complete still. That, when it's complete, will be close to 860 new meters in that particular area. We finally have an update that I can share from Spectrum. Spectrum, it's been much more difficult to get information from them, but finally was able to get a contact that was helpful in the last week, and I can report that so far under the RDOF, which stands for Rural Digital Opportunity Funds or grant from the federal government, that they have reached an additional 700 homes so far in 2023. Those are in the Chatta Valley area, out Benton Pike, some in the southern part of the county, the Lead Mine Valley Road area, Hughes Lake Road area. We don't have quite as good of mapping or specifics as to where, some of you have asked for, and I hope you've received the maps for the VEC projects where you can go down to the street level and see where these projects are. We don't yet have that from Spectrum, but that's something that we continue to ask for and hope to get. Will also in Q4 of this year be going after about another 700 homes with that funding as well too. So with Spectrum's efforts this year in Bradley County, that'll be an additional 1,400 meters in those areas that I mentioned. We are waiting. As I mentioned, this would be the third opportunity we will have hopefully to apply for funding for parts of the 6th district, Southern Bradley County. The ECD grant is scheduled to open up in October, is what we're told. We would be able to apply with matching funds, and if you remember, there is still $1.1 million set aside in the broadband bucket specifically for this grant. Okay, we've just been waiting. So when that opens up, again, hopefully in October, we will be quick to apply. We will know then the specific areas that VEC is applying for, and once we have that, we'll be happy to share it with you all so you know. We will then wait until sometime in the spring of 2024 when those grant funds are awarded. So hopefully third time's a charm for the 6th district. And then if we are awarded in spring, early summer, I'm told by VEC that construction could start on those areas as early as fall of 2024. So hopefully we're a year out, a little over a year out from possibly seeing some additional expansion down there. One of the biggest questions that we get over in our office, and I'm sure you get too, is why is it not on my road? Right, Spectrum's going down this road, but they're not going down that road. VEC's right here, they cut around my neighborhood. Why? And there are several answers for that. The number one answer that we see is that according to the maps, and if you've been doing this for a while, you remember how bad these maps are, but how closely the funding is tied to those maps. Those maps, if they say that your neighborhood or your road or your house is already served, guess what? You're out of luck when it comes to some of these other projects that we're applying for, because the funding that we're getting now from the state and what we hope to apply for in October are going to areas that are, quote, unserved or underserved, right? So if you're home, and there are a couple of resources at the state as well as at the FCC website where you can go and plug in your address and it'll tell you what you have in terms of service. Now we know it's inaccurate, but there's nothing that we can do about that at this level. We've talked with our federal legislators. The state has done a tremendous job in upgrading their map. It's a lot more accurate than the federal map, but there are still holes and there's still some vulnerabilities there that have to be worked through. You have a question? Sorry.
Question.
Yes, Josh, go ahead.
Adam, how many homes and I don't know if you know the answer. If you don't, if you could try and get it for us, how many homes are considered underserved or unserved in Bradley County, homes or businesses? Is there a total? And with that map, because I've looked at the map that you're talking about, and it is confusing. You know, you have a house here that's underserved or not served, and then one that's not. And if we could know where these are, to where these grants are actually getting spent where the dollars are supposed to be, and hopefully, you know, these areas and people can contact the state or federal and fill out these maps, and we could try and get internet in these certain areas.
To answer your question, we don't have a specific number. We ballparked this several years ago, if you were on the commission or remember, and I don't have that number in front of me. I'm probably going to throw out an inaccurate number if you can help me remember. I want to say it was like 13,000. Don't quote me on that. I can get the exact number, but I think we did our best to estimate, but it's really hard because without participation from everybody or somebody walking the streets and literally checking with every resident, it would be hard. It would be hard to. I want to say it was more than that. I think it was 30-something thousand. Actually, 13 sounds low. There's a lot of people that don't have it. But as far as directing the funds, we have to be hands off. You know, first of all, we're working really with two entities. We've had the opportunity to work with Volunteer Electric, which isn't exactly a for-profit entity. They're cooperative, right? So they're much more flexible. They have a much more vested interest in the the citizen or their customer or their partner, right? Not to say that the Spectrums and the AT&Ts of the world aren't, but they are for-profit companies. So they are also looking at areas that they can reap the biggest return on investment. And so that's really the second reason why not in our area. There's 10 houses on this road, Commissioner Rogers, and you're on this road with 3. Where do you think the funds are going to go? Because they can recoup the investment or justify the investment if you're cooperative much easier where there's density. So what we're seeing is that the larger pockets of density in the unserved areas are getting addressed. Unfortunately, though, that means that that there are areas that'll take longer to get to.
You wouldn't mind trying to find that number
Yeah.
and get it to me. Appreciate it.
Commissioner Collins.
Mr. Lewis, is there also not a caveat in terms of the mapping where that if there's a subdivision with 200 homes and one house has access to it, that designates the whole thing is?
Yeah, the FCC map, which was sort of the Bible for the longest time, went by a census block. So a census block could have multiple homes in a neighborhood, and if one home in that census block showed as served, then the entire census block shows up as served. What the state map did a better job of was go a little more granular. There was an open period last year, and I think they may plan to do one again, where they've asked people to go in, the public to go in and help them to identify areas of opportunity, mainly by, again, putting in your address and challenging the accuracy of the map. What we've also found, too, is there are pockets of Bradley County where there is funding. This RDOF grant that's been awarded, goodness, 4 years ago, maybe? They're just now spending the funds to expand in those areas. Nobody else can go in to those areas as long as, again, it's showing served. Doesn't mean you have internet there, but if there's funding in place for a project that just hasn't been built out yet, you're considered served, and there will be no opportunity for you to get funding elsewhere.
Anyone else? Commissioner Blake.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A couple things real quick. On the grants from the state, as Commissioner Winters will allude to, we chatted with Senator Lowe and Representative Raper that they need to clean up this whole grant process with respect to the broadband. And talking with the representative from VEC and how they're going about it, one, they weren't prepared, and that's on the state, I guess. But I understand that it takes a long time to do the architecture and the engineering and all that kind of stuff, but they can do a better job, and I think they all know it. So hopefully our representatives up in Nashville will get that message across. Second, you guys, I find it interesting that over the last 3 or 4 years, maybe even more, in fact, I remember our late Commissioner Yarber here talking about it, trying to get Spectrum to even talk to certain residents was pulling teeth. And now all of a sudden that VEC's out there providing internet or getting the infrastructure down and signing people up, Spectrum's out there as well. So I think that's just, I don't know, frustrating. Last, when I went up to the conference up in Gatlinburg, and I didn't write everything, I took pictures of this PowerPoint. Adam, you may remember, in addition to the state funding was there before COVID. They had put that program, I think, when Representative Howell put it together. The first one was up there in the Hopewell area. But the feds have come up with what they call BEAD, B-E-A-D, digital equity and stuff like that. $42.45 billion for everybody. And the state of Tennessee is supposed to get over 100 million and stuff like that. And the idea behind that, what they set up there, is eventually they want internet for everybody. But that may be, we may retire twice before that happens. But there are multiple pockets of it, kind of like our art, where we put money in different buckets. There are tons of grants. There's another grant that he told me about that they're providing internet or infrastructure from ISP to ISP, stuff like that. So all that to say, I encourage everyone to be patient as possible, but we are on the state and everybody to try to get in and out as much as possible. The reason why I am for internet or advocate for it is, one, when COVID happened and the school systems had to close down or give the option to stay home, you know, my two boys over here in Blythe Avenue, or Blythe Ferry, they had everything they needed to do their school, their curriculum, the video conferencing and all that kind of stuff. The poor young child out at Butts Pocket or up here, they didn't have that. They had to come into town like that. And two, telemedicine is becoming much bigger. My younger son is away at college, and he had a telemedicine the other day with a physician. So the more we can get internet out to the people, and the return on our investment is they shop and do transactions on the internet more and more, and that only helps us with our points of sale. So kudos to getting this out there in the Chatham Valley area, those people, and I hope we continue the momentum. Last thing, I'm sorry, I said was, if the state doesn't come with the grant application, we had already made an agreement amongst ourselves that we would enter into a 50-50 deal with VEC. So if the state doesn't come through in a timetable that we need them to, then in my opinion, we automatically go into a 50-50 deal. When I talked to him the other day, I said, do we need to pull the trigger on that 50-50 deal? He said, no, not yet. We do get more bang for the buck if we use the state's money, obviously, but this time next year, if we don't have an agreement or we don't have an award with the state, I think we need to seriously consider the 50-50 deal and then just continue on that way. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes.
I'm intrigued about the folks in a subdivision that everybody has coverage but one person, and that person is already has everything, but some report has said that they don't. How many? That doesn't seem really fair to me. I mean, when it comes down to my subdivision, everybody else has it, but I do not, and they're saying that I didn't make the cut. So, how many of our constituents do you think are in that number? I mean, that's where we come in, as far as I'm concerned, is when you got X persons, all y'all have that and I don't, then why cannot that company take that appeal and say the feds, we're going to do this? And that speaks to your statements about making sure it's equitable all the way through from city, county versus, but if I'm in a subdivision and you all have it and I don't, then I think I have a case. So if we can see what number we're talking about here, and if it's whichever district it is, districts they are, we could start looking at what we could do to either update that map or get the service provider to provide for those singles that we say. Is that possible?
Mr. Chairman, I'll take that if you don't mind. A couple of years ago, we did ask, and it was kind of an oxymoron, we asked people to tell us that they didn't have internet via email. I know, I get it. But I'll give you a quick example. Benjamin Crest, which is a subdivision, I guess, you go up the hill, when you go up there, make the first right. Every house on that street, when you made that right, had internet except for the last two houses. They're friends of ours. And I had Spectrum go out there and they chatted. Make a long story short, Spectrum came back and says, Resident A, or it'll cost you $5,000 for us to put a DNS server, domain naming service server out there. And it goes to your point that everybody on that street had internet provided to them except for the last two houses. And Spectrum basically said it's going to cost you $5,000. Now, the other point I think is interesting is once the resident forked over the money for it, then Spectrum will use that DNS server, router, modem, whatever you want to call it, provide internet to others. So it goes to show you. But we did have a map where people did email us, and Wayne over at GIS put little dots on the map, and I don't know where that map ever went, but we did have a map on that.
That's what we used to come up with the number that Commissioner Rogers was asking about. I'm not familiar, Commissioner Winters, with an example like you've given where there's one person out of a neighborhood that doesn't have it when everyone else is served. What we've seen more of is you've got one person in the neighborhood that has it and the rest of the neighborhood doesn't. And what we found is that that's an attempt to box out competition. Because again, back to the census block, if my house has it, but theirs doesn't, and we're in the same census block, they're showing as served. Therefore, nobody else can come in. Now, if I'm the service provider for Adam Lewis, I can provide internet to those two whenever I'm good and ready, and I don't have to worry about VEC coming in. So it's, in some ways, it's an attempt to box out competition. You're dealing with two different entities, for-profit and not-for-profit.
Anyone else? Question? One more.
I just think if it is for profit, they're working with our constituents. We have a right to say, this is a time to take care of those people that are our taxpayers, and we support them. If it's just a matter of making money, you can't tell me they're not going to make money on the new ones that come through that. So maybe the cost is pretty high to do that. I guess that's probably the case, but it just seems like there's a time for business. There's a time to make them.
I agree with you 100%.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you very much. Commissioner Mason, still got the floor.
I'll just say one last thing to wrap this up quickly. We talked about what's next. Again, the next step would be for us to be able to apply for those areas in the 6th District or others. We potentially try to apply for others sometime in October. But we are still at the mercy of that federal and state funding. It's millions upon millions upon millions of dollars to expand this infrastructure, and Bradley County's not in the broadband business. So we're going to have to rely on our partners in these funding mechanisms. It's worth noting, though, and I would say this, I'm proud of the work of this commission as well as the last commission, because in the last 6 years, over $30 million worth of taxpayer money has been invested in broadband in this county. More than any other area of infrastructure across the county by far. And so for you all that sit here and those that have sat before you, you should pat yourselves on the back, because although it doesn't happen as quick as we'd like, and we're never going to make everybody happy, there's a lot of work that's that has gone into getting us to this point, and I believe that it'll take a lot more work to get us to the finish line. So thank you.
I just want to say I appreciate Adam Lewis for the update. Thank you very much, sir.
Is that it? Okay, next is agenda item B, Commissioner Hughes.
Mr. Chairman, this is a resolution to rezone from General Industrial District to Forestry Agricultural Residential District, property located at Leadmine Valley Road Southwest and identified by tax map 65 parcel 57.04. These can be seen on pages 3 and 4, and I'd like to place this on the voting agenda. It was recommended for acceptance by the Planning Commission.
Okay, it's so done. Agenda item C, Commissioner Hughes.
Mr. Chairman, this is a resolution to rezone from General Industrial District to Rural Residential District, property located at Leadmine Valley Road Southwest, identified by tax map 65 parcel 57.08 and 57.9. These can be seen on pages 5 and 6, and I would like to place this on the voting agenda also, and it was also recommended for acceptance by the Planning Commission.
So done. Agenda item D, this is your night, man.
Mr. Chairman, this is a resolution to rezone from Rural Commercial District to Special Impact Industrial District, property located at 440 Old Powerline Road Northeast, and identified by tax map 58B, Group H, Parcel 201, and this can be seen on pages 7 and 8. It was not recommended for approval by the Planning Commission. It does not meet the requirements for rezoning to I-2. I-2, if anyone is asking, is a salvage yard.
So remember all this.
That's one question.
Yes, please.
So in this last one you just presented, the current use is a salvage scrapyard, and the proposed use is a salvage scrapyard.
It's out of compliance. It's in violation at this point.
I got you. Thank you.
What?
We've notified them at this point, and then as soon as this votes go through, we'll move forward from there.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Commissioner Rogers.
Mr. Hughes, you said that it doesn't meet the requirements of I-2. What are those requirements?
It's a 5 acre tract of land. One of the main requirements is 25 acres, just to have salvage yards that it fails possible. And then there's other violations also, but that's the main one.
Good. Any other questions on that one? All righty. Agenda item E, Commissioner Alford.
Mr. Thompson brought it up last week. I just think this annexation of referendum, if you look at it on pages, whatever, 9 and 10, I believe it is, I encourage each commissioner to read that very carefully, because I think, just between me and the fence post, I think it's a way that the city can get around our voting on whether they can annex a piece of property or not. And the county people need to be aware of this and be reading and watching all the time, I think. The other question is, would it take away the right for us to put signs, annexation signs on the property that we had required earlier on a bill last year, I guess it was, or year before? So there's just a lot of questions. I just think we need to really look at it hard and study it and come up with some scenarios. I don't know if we have any scenarios that we can come up with, because there's, to me, like they're circumventing this period.
Yes. I don't recall the city maintaining any road that they've taken in so far. It's documented, but they haven't done it yet, to my knowledge. Take a tour on Freewell Road if you want to get an education. Commissioner Thompson.
Talking about picketing roads and then down Michigan Avenue, down Georgia Hill Road, took the right side of that time. I asked them, take the property and we'll take the road in. So I said, I know it. So understand how they think. Think the same way.
Howard, it might be your night, sir. You'd like to send this over to your committee, Building and Lands, to look into it, please, and come back and report to us.
On the referendum?
Yes, on this thing about annexation we're talking about here.
Lori, we must have a little more time than what we've got here then. We're gonna take all 3 items in there, so we'll try to get them all in, and if I go over them, then if we need more time, we'll set another meeting.
Looks like we might need to energize our elected officials in Nashville, try to help us.
Commissioner Thompson, Finance will wait until you've got all your work done before we start.
I doubt.
Commissioner Thompson. Or Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a statement from the previous commission. I'm just making a statement. There's no forced annexation. Is that correct? You can't force anyone to be annexed.
No.
No.
Right. So there's no forced annexation. These people are agreeing when they get annexed.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
But I think what you're looking at here is non-contiguous annexation. And you're a developer, you buy a piece of property, it's got one little house on it. You're the only person voting in the referendum. So it's automatically, without coming before the county commission, theoretically, you are being sidetracked. Go ahead,
Mr. Chairman, this is a big topic of a conversation because it doesn't just affect roads; it affects schools. Um, with that in mind, I would love to be able to hear from the director of schools and from her team at the county to understand how this will impact Bradley County schools. If this takes off, what does that look like for funding? What does that look like for teachers? What does that look like? There's been talks and discussions of needing new schools, and what does that look like? If more annexation is happening into the city, the city school system will be building these schools, I would assume, or would the county continue to be building these schools and these kids going to county schools? And if we build a county school, 50% of that funding, I think it is, goes back to the city. So I would just love to be able to hear. I know we're sending this to building and land, but I think that this affects multiple committees and multiple programs, whether that's from roads, whether that is from schools, and I would love for building and land to look at it, but something that is this big, that is this big of a discussion and a topic, I don't know if it would also be needed to be able to hear from other departments as well, from the road department, from fire and EMS, and from schools as well.
I agree with you, but we'll start with Commissioner Thompson's committee, and then we'll skip over to finance, education. Dr. Cash has an ongoing study that was done by an outside firm that's almost to the point of being completed. I believe she has presented before the board, and it goes into great detail about the students. And it's a serious issue. You can't convince me a parent's going to send their child to Mayfield when there's a school at Parkview right across the street. It's just not going to happen. But I agree with you.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes. Go ahead, Commissioner.
I almost forgot what I was about to say. Oh, wow. One of the things, our Commissioner Thompson, would it be wise, since we're dealing with this referendum, to maybe request that the county attorney be there to have the legal side of it?
Yes, we do. It's always good to have her in a meeting like that where we can, if we have a question, we can ask her, and we might need the district attorney there. I don't know.
Thank you. Commissioner Goins.
No. One's on 64 in Durkee, and it runs down beside Bakes Pike. And the part on the back side of Bakes Pike, you're going to have sewer and water and everything run up through there. There's no infrastructure whatsoever there. All the neighbors down there are having a hard time with it. But when it comes up for vote, again, we gotta be their voice. And but there's a little sign there on Bakes Pike that's about this big, and it's in the ditch. It says that they're turning it into R1 and R1, and there was something else. And it's directly at Oak Grove.
About this, we have the issue over at North Lee where they're building over there. We have the one right across from Parkview. times I've had a chance to talk to our school board members, like, you guys are gonna have to sharpen your pencils quick, and they know it, what they're gonna do. I believe that study that Chairman Crowder was referring to is gonna be presented to the school board in the next week or two, what I've been told. I look forward to seeing what expansion capabilities.
So what kind of infrastructure, who's putting the sewer and the water in?
The Cleveland Utilities.
Did they got a job?
But I think they
It's
have,
all
I believe they have up to 7 or 8 years, but they're behind.
Mr. Thompson.
The place on Cherokee, there are 500 homes. I know they ran sewer, city runs sewer over Ben Moore's property there over to Parkview School. And of course, they have sewer in that area already, and that could be city easily enough for that 500 homes, but those kids will end up going to either Michigan Avenue, Parkview, and Oak Grove. So that could mean another 1,000 kids somewhere. So it's a serious thing to think about, and what we're going to have to do to these schools. It takes a lot of money when you start expanding. So anyway, we need to get this on the table as soon as possible. Thank you.
Mr. Alford, still your nickels.
That nickel turned into a dime. I agree with Mr. Rogers a while ago. You hit it right on the head, Mr. Rogers, referencing the school situation with these buildings all over. We went through Hensley Road last year out Prospect, and no one's yet to come up with an idea how many apartments that are already being built right across the street almost from Prospect School. How's that going to affect Prospect School? Which I know how it's going to affect it, and you probably know that too. But I think school board's got some really hard decisions to make in the next year or so, because I can't see us building any more schools for city kids. Thank you.
Anything else? Any more questions? Is that it?
Well, city people pay county taxes. And it's always been the battle whether they go to county schools or not. As a principal that accepted students, great students from the city, come to my school, it's all our kids. So at some point, we'll have to figure it out at city and county how that works. But it doesn't need to be moved pretty quickly. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Agenda item F. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
If I'm not mistaken, when the city went charter, they give up the right to put kids in county schools. There's several lawsuits have been done several years ago. If you look them all up, we don't have to take any city kids.
All right. That's, again, why we need the county attorney at these meetings. So, all right, agenda item F, Commissioner Mason.
Chairman, this is Bellingham Drive to be placed on the Bradley County Road list for a vote for next week.
Thank you. Commissioner Mason, carry on with G.
This is Vocker Boulevard to be placed on the Bradley County Road list also for next week's voting session. Thank you.
Next would be communication from the audience. You will have 5 minutes. Anyone in the audience that would like to speak? We have a great audience. All right, and now, yeah, go ahead, Commissioner.
To all the constituents of every commissioner up here, I encourage you to call your commissioners. These are some serious things that's coming toward the school boards, the county. Call your commissioners and talk to them. Maybe you got an idea for them. And give them some insight on where you're at, what you live. Thank you.
All right, announcements. Next meeting be the voting session Tuesday, September the 5th at 7 p.m. here at the courthouse. Upcoming events, Market at the Mill, August 31 from 3 to 6, Old Woolen Mill. Art House Project Incubator Grand Opening, August 31st, 5:30 to 7:30 at the Old Woolen Mill. County offices are closed in observance of Labor Day, September the 4th. Finance Committee meets September the 5th at 11:30. The Building and Lands meets at 10 a.m. on September the 5th. September the 16th is 8 to noon, tire turn back. And September the 8th, I think it was 1 p.m. fire graduation.
Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
before you depart, Mr. Lewis, would you ask the mayor, I know he's mentioned it 2 or 3 times about bringing you updated bucket list figures. Could we get that possibly for our next meeting? Thank you.
All right, if there's nothing else, we are adjourned.